can AI make TV better, Tony?
So I think it's like any tool set. When if you go back and say, did editing online, non-linear editing, make the output of content better? I think most people would agree it did. So AI and machine learning, and we should probably get out of the way, what do we mean by that? Because like cloud, it's one of those most poorly defined, least understood sections. For us, it's using machines to do things that typically people did very labor intensively in the past. So AI with algorithms, machine learning with data models can do all of those things that you could do with people, but it would just take lots of them a long amount of time. Or with gigantic data sets, you couldn't really do it before. So the shorter answer is, yes, I think it will make it better because we'll be supplying better tools to the creative people who put the content together.
And you're going to talk about what Microsoft's doing in this space and one of the tools that you're currently providing. But what I'm curious about is, do you have any use cases that you would highlight as being how artificial intelligence is really making a difference so far?
Well, let me give you the example of NML Shine Group. They have just gone through a very major reboot of Big Brother. Did anyone here know how long Big Brother's been out in the market? It's almost 20 years. Dates me. And what they're trying to do is figure out how can they make it fresher, more interesting, more immediate. And what we did with them is we took some of the things we'll talk about later and made it so that their producers the next morning get all of the output from yesterday in the house, all of the transcripts, all of the emotions, all of the facial recognition of who was in which room talking with which people. Sentiment analysis on whether it was positive or negative or neutral or whatever. And then they can take all of that content, distribute it out over the cloud to editors who no longer have to be on site. They can be in other places, putting things together in a more immediate sense. So the production in Italy that just concluded, I think, a month or two ago, was one of their most successful, some of their biggest ratings. And they attribute, not all of it, needless to say, but they attribute some of it to their ability to do things more quickly and do things that they couldn't do before because they didn't have the time to do them. So that's the answer to a lot of these, is you can now do things that were not possible before only because you didn't have the time.
And creatively then, what is the input that you believe artificial intelligence can give content creators?
So I think it gives them tools to get insights into scenes, into interactions much more quickly than they could before. But it's also a different area, is not so much for creatives, but for people who have large catalogs of content. They can go back and now mine that catalog in ways that they couldn't before. So I'll give you an example of UFA, which is a large production company in Berlin, part of Bertelsmann. They had a back catalog of Verbotene Liebe, which is it's a series that's been running there for 20 odd years. And they were asked if they could deliver that out as a SVOD or a TVOD service. And someone was asking them, well, what's in all of the episodes? And if they were lucky with the ones 15 years ago, they had the name of the episode, the date it was transmitted, maybe not more than that.
Right.
So they were able to create metadata out of it by going and mining it at a cost which was probably a tenth of what they historically would have done, with a couple of partners who worked in them. So now they have metadata, in some cases clips, short clips from it, that they can use to inform people on whether they'd want to see it or not, or what the storyline is, or different areas like that. The most exciting thing for me, though, is that we don't know the way people are going to use it.
Yeah.
We put a lot of these things out there, and then someone will come along. In Malaysia, they're looking at it as a way of, and we'll all view this as censorship, they view it as meeting community standards of removing certain things from programs, either certain words or certain scenes, things that are not appropriate. And previously, the amount of cost for them having to do that kind of content redaction was very, very expensive, because you'd actually have to watch every single minute. Now they still watch most of it, but they get clues as to where to go to find things that they're going to have to remove.
And I mean, the conversation always turns when we talk about artificial intelligence to how is this going to replace jobs and what is it going to mean for the industry and how is it going to have to revolutionise in some ways to keep up with things? How do you see that impact?
So I'm not a believer that artificial intelligence or machine learning will be the creative force in writing new stories or doing new genres. It's clear that it can do a lot in terms of removing the drudgery from, say, editing or transcripting. So all of those jobs which before were, watch 3 hours of this and tell me the 2 minutes that I need, it might come down to a person saying, now watch 20 minutes of this. I've already selected the 20 minutes that are probably the best. Tell me the 2 minutes that you need from that. So in that sense, the amount of people needed to do that will go down. But the quote I like is from a guy at MIT who said, yes, it's going to replace a lot of the robotic jobs, but maybe we don't want people to have robotic jobs if they are just that. It's not going to replace, I don't think, this is my opinion, the creative jobs very much. And yet, I think it's going to enable people in many ways to be much more creative. Creative within boundaries, creative within algorithms, and we have to be careful when we create all of those boundaries and algorithms that we're not moving things into a very narrow path and reducing creativity.
Okay. Just to make you all aware as well, we are accepting questions over the app if you want to fire any at us. But at the end, I'm going to try and get a couple of minutes as well for you to ask some questions if you want to as well. So we'll open it up at the discussion before we close. To move on, what I'd quite like to do is explore what is Microsoft doing in this space. So is it Video Index or is the tool?
Show you a couple of things that make it, because in this case, the picture is probably worth a lot more than 1,000 words. So these are the basic technologies that are there as part of Video Indexer. Could you just move that a little bit to the left, then I can see the screen.
Can you see it at all?
Yeah.
Right.
So it does facial recognition, redaction, object detection, content moderation. So it can go through and decide whether a scene is racy, adult, or family friendly. It can tell you what objects all appear within the scene. So if it's a couch, if it's a wall, if it's a car, if it's a dump truck. It can detect faces and match that against a celebrity database of up to like 10,000 we have, but you can add your own facial recognition to it. So typically customers use it and they put in tags on all the faces they know, and then it'll come back and tell them, which means when you've indexed something, you can go back and say, I only want a scene with this person in it, and you can click and it'll take you directly to it. It does OCR within it, so it'll take any signs or any credits that are on there, a lot of different things. And with Video Indexer, what we've done is taken those are all individual technologies that run within our Azure cloud today. And we've stitched them into something that breaks it down into, I think this is last time I checked, something like 28 different functions. And all of those different functions we then run at one time when you analyze a video, which means we can do translation to other languages, we can do scene detection, scene changes, brand detection. So if you want to know everywhere the Edinburgh TV Festival appears within this, it would come back after our recording today and tell you that I just said that and take you exactly to that point rather than having to search for it. And it's that stitching together of everything that gives you a vision into what a video indexer can do. The reality is that most partners and most customers end up using 4 or 5 of those functions. They don't just use the indexer per se, although it's a great way to test it, and I encourage any of you, it's a free service right now for individuals to use, vi.microsoft.com you can go to, and upload your own files and try it out, because there's nothing like seeing what it works like.